Have you ever noticed how a single negative thought can dominate your entire day? That inner voice that says, I can't, or this will never work, may seem uncontrollable. But what if I told you that those same thoughts can become the most powerful force in your life? In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how to transform every doubt, every fear, every insecurity into energy for action, confidence, and success. You'll learn simple and practical techniques to flip the switch in your mind and use what once paralyzed you as fuel to achieve everything you desire. If you truly want to change your way of thinking, start acting with courage and feel the difference in your daily life. Subscribe to the channel now and activate the notification bell, because here you will discover tools that can completely change your life. And don't forget to comment on which negative thought you most want to transform into power today. Recognize your negative thoughts. Recognizing your negative thoughts is the first fundamental step in transforming your mind into a powerful tool for growth and success. Often, we live immersed in automatic thought patterns that dominate us without us realizing it. These thoughts arise so naturally that it's easy to believe they are reality, that they reflect who we are, or that they determine exactly how the world is. However, the truth is that they are merely constructs of the mind, momentary interpretations of experiences and emotions that can be observed, understood, and modified. Awareness of these mental patterns is the starting point. Before any transformation, it's essential to create a space for observation within yourself, a place where you can watch your thoughts without judgment. This observation process requires mindfulness and patience, as the mind tends to resist deep introspection. Initially, it may seem difficult to perceive when you are immersed in a cycle of negativity, because these thoughts often present themselves subtly, almost imperceptibly, and manifest as small recurring doubts, fears, or worries that accumulate over time. Recognizing these thoughts involves identifying exactly what you are thinking, how these ideas arise, and what feelings they provoke. It's a meticulous exercise in detail, where you need to go beyond the general label of, I thought something negative, and instead dissect the thought until you reach the root of the perception that originated it. For example, when a feeling of insecurity arises, it's not just about I can't, but about understanding that there is a series of internal judgments, unmet expectations, silent comparisons with other people, and a history of experiences that fuel this belief. Each negative thought carries with it layers of interpretations, emotions, and conditioning that have shaped how the mind reacts to external challenges and stimuli. This recognition process must be constant and deliberate. It's not something that happens only once. It's a daily practice of observing, mapping, and noting the thought patterns that emerge, in order to create awareness of the inner workings of one's own mind. With this awareness, you begin to realize that negative thoughts are not absolute commands, but rather signals indicating areas that need attention, care, or change. Recognizing negative thoughts also means accepting them without resistance. Often, the immediate reaction to negativity is to try to suppress it, ignore it, or punish yourself for having it. This reaction, however, only increases its power, because denying or suppressing a thought is, paradoxically, allowing it to continue silently influencing emotions and behaviors. Acceptance involves observing the thought, understanding its presence, and allowing it to exist for a moment without being consumed by it. It's the equivalent of noticing clouds passing across the sky of your mind. You realize they are there, but you don't need to cling to them or let them block the sunlight. A crucial aspect of this practice is the ability to differentiate between thought and identity. Negative thoughts do not define who you are. They are merely transient messages, products of the mind reacting to past experiences or anticipating possible future scenarios. By recognizing this, you create a healthy distance that allows you to analyze the situation clearly, without being confused by the mental content. Furthermore, recognizing negative thoughts paves the way for understanding emotional and behavioral triggers. By mapping when and why these thoughts arise, you begin to identify patterns. Perhaps certain situations, environments, or people trigger feelings of inadequacy, fear, or anxiety. This understanding provides valuable data for transformation, as it allows you to anticipate, prepare, and react constructively. The practice of journaling, writing about emotions, and reflecting on moments of mental tension is an effective tool in this process. Putting thoughts into external words helps clarify their nature, reduces emotional intensity, and creates the opportunity for critical analysis. As you become more skilled at recognizing negative thoughts, you realize that they are fleeting, that they come and go, and that their power over you diminishes significantly when faced with conscious attention. The mind, once chaotic and dominated by cycles of negativity, begins to make room for more conscious choices, more deliberate reactions, and the transformation of these thoughts into constructive energy. Recognizing negative thoughts is, therefore, an exercise in courage and mental discipline. It requires a willingness to face one's own mind without masks, without illusions, and with the determination to understand its internal patterns. It is the first step to not being held hostage by one's own negativity, and to begin redirecting mental energy towards actions, decisions, and attitudes that build success, confidence, and personal fulfillment. When you become capable of observing each negative thought clearly, without judgment and with curiosity, you begin a journey of self-mastery and self-transformation, in which the energy previously drained by internal criticism or fear is transformed into fuel to grow, create, and achieve your goals. This recognition is the foundation upon which all subsequent change rests, because only by accurately perceiving internal reality is it possible to intervene effectively, reprogram mental patterns, and transform negativity into an impetus for success. Question the truth behind emotions. When negative thoughts arise, our minds often automatically accept them as absolute truths, and it is at this point that the cycle of self-sabotage strengthens. Questioning the truth behind emotions means stopping and analyzing each sensation, each mental impulse, to determine if it truly corresponds to reality, or if it is merely a distorted interpretation of events, memories, or expectations. This process requires awareness and patience, as our brain has a natural protective mechanism called negativity bias, which makes us pay more attention to perceived threats than to signs of safety or opportunities. By recognizing this, we can begin to create a space between what we feel and what is actually factual. The first step is to observe your thoughts without judging them. When experiencing a negative emotion, whether anxiety, fear, anger, or frustration, it's crucial not to react immediately, but rather to pause and reflect. Ask yourself if the intensity of this emotion aligns with the facts, or if you are being driven by assumptions, exaggerations, or past experiences that don't apply to the current situation. For example, a feeling of inadequacy in the face of a professional challenge might stem from memories of past mistakes, but that doesn't mean the present will follow the same pattern. Separating emotion from judgment is an exercise in discernment that requires practice, but it is transformative when internalized. The human mind tends to automatically create stories that link cause and effect, often exaggerating risks or underestimating our capabilities. Questioning the truth behind emotions is precisely about interrupting these automatic narratives. Imagine the mind as a tireless narrator that interprets every environmental signal and every bodily reaction as proof that the world is against you or that you are not enough. By realizing that these narratives may not be accurate, you create the opportunity to rewrite them. It's as if you have the chance to put an end to what was previously assumed to be inevitable and open up space for different, more constructive and realistic possibilities. Furthermore, questioning the truth behind emotions helps reduce the influence of fear and anxiety on our decisions. Often, our emotions push us towards inaction, conformity, or impulsive decisions that don't reflect our real goals. When you learn to critically evaluate each feeling, you can distinguish between a legitimate reaction to real danger and what is merely an exaggerated alert from an anxious mind. This distinction transforms initially negative energy into fuel for strategic action, because you begin to act based on data and reasoning, not just momentary feelings. Another crucial point is understanding that not all emotions need to be suppressed, but all can be analyzed. Anger, for example, is not harmful in itself, but when taken as proof of injustice or personal failure without reflection, it can generate unnecessary conflict and suffering. Questioning the veracity of this emotion means asking whether it reflects a real situation, whether it is linked to unrealistic expectations, or whether it is the result of projections. This process requires honesty with oneself and a willingness to recognize when the mind is creating stories that do not correspond to reality, but it offers the reward of greater clarity and emotional freedom. The practice of questioning the truth behind emotions is also linked to the idea of personal responsibility. Instead of blaming external circumstances, other people, or past events for internal discomfort, you learn to take control of how you interpret and respond to the signals from your body and mind. This doesn't mean denying feelings, but rather preventing them from automatically dictating action. This stance allows each experience, however challenging, to become an opportunity for learning and growth, instead of fueling cycles of self-criticism and demotivation. Over time, this exercise becomes a natural and powerful skill. With each situation where you manage to separate fact from emotional interpretation, you strengthen your ability to analyze clearly and make smarter, more balanced decisions. The mind ceases to be a prisoner of negative narratives and becomes a strategic ally, capable of transforming each emotional impulse into energy directed towards building positive results. This transformation is not instantaneous, but each conscious effort contributes to a state of greater autonomy, confidence, and resilience, allowing negative thoughts to cease being obstacles and instead become motivation and insight to achieve concrete goals. Use the body to influence the mind. When we talk about transforming negative thoughts into energy for success, one of the most powerful, yet often overlooked elements is the relationship between body and mind. Many people believe that thoughts control emotions, but the reality is that the process also works in reverse. How we use our bodies can profoundly shape our emotional state, our confidence, and how we perceive the world around us. This connection, studied by psychology and behavioral sciences, shows that posture, breathing, gestures, and even how we occupy space can transform feelings of insecurity, fear, and doubt into courage, energy, and determination to achieve goals. When someone faces a challenge or feels that negative thoughts are dominating their mind, it's common for the body to respond with physical signs of defeat. The shoulders slump, the head tilts, breathing becomes shallow, and the entire body conveys a message of vulnerability, even if the person tries to think positively. This body alignment reinforces negative thoughts because the brain interprets physical posture as a reflection of emotional state. On the other hand, when the body is consciously used to convey confidence and strength, it sends clear signals to the brain that the person is capable of handling difficulties, facing fear head-on. This technique, often called a power pose, is more than a simple external gesture. It's a tool for reprogramming the mind, transforming internal feelings into action. The human body is a highly interconnected machine. When muscles stretch, posture opens, and breathing deepens, a series of chemical changes occur in the body. Hormones like testosterone increase, reinforcing feelings of self-confidence, while cortisol, associated with stress, decreases. This physiological adjustment creates a biological basis for the mind to feel calmer, more centered, and better able to cope with external pressures. The importance of this lies not only in how others perceive us, but also in our own internal experience. Posture affects how we think, feel, and make decisions. Body awareness, therefore, becomes a form of self-control and self-esteem, allowing the negative energy of thoughts to be redirected towards productivity and creativity. Beyond posture, body language includes gestures and movements that can amplify or diminish feelings of personal power. Opening your arms, extending your legs when sitting, keeping your head up, and looking firmly ahead are small adjustments that can cause profound changes in the mind. When we adopt an expansive posture, even if it initially seems forced, the brain begins to interpret the body as being in a state of mastery and confidence. This feeling is immediate and can be felt within minutes. The continuous practice of these postures creates a positive cycle. The mind begins to accept confidence as real, which leads to more assertive behaviors, greater emotional resilience, and a greater ability to transform negative thoughts into positive actions. The body's effect on the mind also extends to how we move in space. Walking with firm steps, occupying space confidently, and avoiding withdrawn movements are subtle but powerful signs of self-control. Each conscious movement helps replace thoughts of doubt or inadequacy with a feeling of competence. This practice requires no special equipment or complex psychological preparation. It simply requires attention to one's own body and a willingness to experiment with new ways of expressing oneself physically. By creating this connection, the mind learns that it is possible to control internal energy, even in the face of adversity, transforming negative emotions into fuel to achieve goals. Another essential aspect is breathing. Shallow and rapid breathing is associated with anxiety, tension, and negative thoughts, while deep and rhythmic breathing sends signals of calm and security to the brain. Conscious, slow, and controlled breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, responsible for regulation and internal balance. Combined with an open and expansive posture, breathing becomes a tool to modulate mental states, dissipate fear, and create an internal space for creativity, reasoning, and positive decision-making. Overall, using the body to influence the mind is a powerful technique that goes far beyond a simple outward display of confidence. It's a practical strategy for transforming the negative energy of thoughts into inner strength, motivation, and concrete action. Each gesture, each posture, and each conscious breath acts as a signal that reprograms the brain, shaping emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. When applied consistently, this practice creates lasting change, allowing anyone, even in the face of persistent negative thoughts, to find within themselves the energy needed to transform challenges into opportunities and insecurity into success. This approach reveals an essential truth: mind and body are inseparable. We cannot underestimate the power of the body as an ally in personal transformation. While many focus only on positive thinking techniques or affirmations, physical connection offers tangible and immediate results, strengthening confidence, reducing stress, and fueling the energy needed to achieve goals. Mastering this practice means learning to use every fiber of the body as a catalyst for success, transforming mental negativity into powerful and productive action, paving the way for real and lasting achievements. Turn problems into opportunities. Turning problems into opportunities is an essential skill for anyone who wants to evolve, not only professionally, but also in their personal and emotional life. The ability to see something seemingly negative as a starting point for something positive is not just a practice of optimism, but a concrete strategy for mental and emotional development. Every difficult situation contains elements that can be used for growth, learning, and discovering paths that were previously invisible. When faced with a problem, the natural tendency is to resist, deny, or feel frustrated. However, this resistance only amplifies discomfort and limits our ability to act productively. The first step in turning problems into opportunities is accepting the reality of what is happening. Acceptance does not mean resignation, but rather the willingness to face the problem head-on, understanding its causes, effects, and possible consequences. When we can look at the situation without judgment or blame, we open up space to observe solutions that previously went unnoticed. By observing a problem clearly and objectively, we realize that it is not an absolute obstacle, but a bridge to new possibilities. Every challenge carries valuable information about our own limitations and strengths. Instead of focusing on what went wrong or what makes us feel incapable, it is possible to analyze the situation to understand which skills we can develop, which strategies can be adjusted, and which resources can be mobilized to overcome the difficulty. Problems also force us out of our comfort zone. Often, we remain complacent in routines or patterns that do not challenge us, and it is only in the face of a problem that we are forced to seek alternatives, to think creatively, and to explore paths we had not previously considered. It is in this process that opportunity is born. Transforming problems into opportunities requires a shift in perspective. Instead of focusing on loss, mistakes, or difficulties, attention must be directed towards what can be gained, learned, or developed. Every adverse situation contains elements that can strengthen skills, expand knowledge, or generate new connections. For example, an obstacle that initially seems to impede progress may reveal dormant abilities, awaken unexplored talents, or inspire innovative solutions that otherwise would not have emerged. This capacity for reframing, or cognitive restructuring, is fundamental. It involves training the mind to perceive the hidden potential within the difficulty, replacing the perception of threat with the perception of opportunity. Furthermore, facing problems with this mindset allows one to build emotional resilience. When we understand that every difficulty contains an opportunity, we begin to deal with stress and frustration in a more balanced way. Instead of feeling defeated or paralyzed in the face of adversity, a person begins to act strategically and consciously, taking advantage of the resources they have and seeking creative solutions. The constant practice of transforming problems into opportunities also strengthens self-confidence, as each challenge overcome confirms that we are capable of facing complex situations and learning from them. Another important aspect is realizing that opportunities don't just arise from the immediate outcome of a problem, but from the very process of confronting it. Every step taken to deal with the difficulty, every decision made, and every effort undertaken contributes to personal growth. It is along this path that new ideas, new approaches, and new ways of acting emerge. Adversity, when faced with the right mindset, becomes a catalyst for innovation and progress. The key is not to dwell on the negative aspects of the situation, but to analyze, reflect on, and use every detail as a resource. A problem, when transformed into an opportunity, ceases to be a blockage and becomes a springboard, a starting point for something greater. Furthermore, transforming problems into opportunities doesn't mean ignoring or minimizing difficulties. It means recognizing the challenge, understanding it deeply, and, based on that understanding, consciously deciding how to act. This approach requires mental discipline, self-knowledge, and constant practice. The more we train our minds to seek opportunity within the problem, the more natural this skill becomes. Over time, situations that previously caused fear or anxiety begin to be seen as stimulating challenges, capable of sparking creativity, motivation, and courage. transforming problems into opportunities is also closely linked to a long-term vision. Instead of focusing solely on the immediate difficulty, it's important to see how that problem can shape the future, open unexpected doors, and allow for achievements that wouldn't otherwise be possible. Each difficulty contains the potential to teach something unique, to reveal hidden paths, and to prepare the person for even greater challenges. When this is understood, the problem ceases to be a burden and becomes an ally in the growth process, a tool that contributes to the continuous development of skills, emotional intelligence, and self-confidence. Therefore, the ability to transform problems into opportunities is a practice that involves acceptance, objective analysis, restructuring of thought, strategic action, and a long-term vision. It is a process that requires patience, discipline, and a willingness to look beyond the apparent difficulty, seeing the hidden potential in each adverse situation. By internalizing this mindset, each obstacle ceases to be just a problem and becomes an opportunity to learn, grow, and achieve results that would otherwise be impossible. The key is to understand that life constantly presents challenges, and that the difference between stagnation and success lies in the ability to transform each difficulty into a springboard for progress. Act, even when you feel afraid. Act even when you feel. Fear is a central concept when we talk about transforming negative thoughts into energy for success. Often, fear presents itself as an invisible block, a wall that seems insurmountable, convincing us that the best choice is to retreat or remain in our comfort zone. Fear initially arises as a natural reaction of the body and mind to unknown or challenging situations, a kind of protective mechanism inherited over millennia. However, in modern life, this same mechanism often turns against us, creating obstacles that exist only in perception, not in reality. Understanding that fear is an emotion and not a definitive sentence is the first step in transforming its energy. Recognizing its presence without being paralyzed by it is essential. This means feeling the fear, perceiving its intensity, observing how it manifests in the body, how it accelerates the heartbeat, causes muscle tension, and increases anxiety. This recognition is not a sign of weakness, but of awareness. Acting despite fear involves a conscious decision not to allow emotion to dictate your choices. It's a daily practice that demands courage and mental discipline. The crucial point is understanding that action doesn't eliminate fear immediately, but transforms it into fuel. Each step taken towards the goal, even a small one, creates a positive feedback loop. Action generates confidence. Confidence reduces the perception of risk, and risk reduction diminishes the feeling of paralysis. This cycle creates momentum, and it is precisely in this movement that fear loses its power. By acting, you demonstrate to yourself that you are capable, even in the face of adversity, that you possess internal resources to deal with challenging situations, and that the perceived threat is often nothing more than an amplified mental projection. Fear also has an interesting function when properly directed. It can serve as an alert, an indication that we are about to leave our comfort zone, and it is precisely this displacement that generates growth. When we remain still, comfortable, and safe, fear disappears, but so does the opportunity for development. Therefore, acting with fear is not ignoring the emotion, but using it as a point of reference. It shows that we are advancing into unknown territory, and the unknown is always the path to new possibilities. The energy released by fear can be converted into focus, creativity, and determination. The body, preparing for danger, produces adrenaline and cortisol, which in situations of directed action can increase performance, speed of reasoning, and resilience. This use of the body's natural response transforms a seemingly negative state into a high-performance mechanism. It's also important to understand that consistent action builds habits that strengthen the mind. Every time you act despite fear, a neural pattern is created that associates courage and initiative with reward, not paralysis. Over time, resistance to fear increases, and what once seemed intimidating becomes just another challenge to face. Fear ceases to be an absolute villain and becomes a companion on the journey, reminding us that we are alive, conscious, and ready to grow. The repetition of this process generates self-confidence and a sense of autonomy. The person stops depending exclusively on external factors to feel safe and begins to find strength within themselves, learning that success does not come from the absence of fear, but from the ability to move forward even when it is present. Acting even when feeling fear means facing each situation with the awareness that discomfort is temporary, that negative emotions don't need to determine the outcome, and that each step taken towards a goal increases the feeling of control. It's a continuous exercise in courage and emotional intelligence that transforms potentially limiting energy into fuel for action, growth, and achievement. It's understanding that real life will never be free of challenges, but that how we react to them defines whether we will be victims of our thoughts or architects of our own path. By internalizing this practice, fear ceases to be an impediment and becomes a silent engine, a constant driver that, when used well, creates the path to success and full realization. Use affirmations and positive self-talk. Affirmations and positive self-talk are not just words spoken at random. They are powerful tools that shape how the mind perceives reality and how the body reacts to challenges. The human mind is like a garden. If you allow weeds of negative thoughts to grow unchecked, they will choke any healthy plants, any idea of progress or positive energy. On the other hand, when you consciously plant seeds of affirmations and reinforce constructive internal dialogue, you begin to cultivate fertile ground capable of generating action, motivation, and genuine confidence. The transformation process begins the moment you decide that thoughts will no longer dictate your limitations. By deliberately speaking to yourself, you are training your mind to perceive possibilities, not just obstacles, and to interpret challenges as opportunities, not threats. When using affirmations, the most important thing is not just repeating empty phrases, but creating a deep sense of connection with what you want to internalize. Positive self-talk acts as a guide that helps the mind reorganize information, filtering what is useful from what is harmful. For example, when a thought of doubt or fear arises, instead of immediately giving in, you can respond internally with words that reinforce competence, courage, and capability. It's not about denying reality, but about shaping perception so that it works in your favor. Every time you respond to a negative thought with a positive affirmation, you strengthen neural connections that facilitate constructive responses, reducing anxiety and procrastination. The power of this process lies in the fact that the mind doesn't completely distinguish between real experience and experience intensely lived in imagination or thought. By repeating phrases that promote self-confidence and resilience, you create mental patterns that make it natural to act confidently, make decisions, and seek opportunities. These affirmations should be detailed and specific, not generic. Instead of simply saying, "I am capable," it's more effective to elaborate on what it means to be capable at that moment, how I face challenges, how I solve problems with clarity and determination. This causes the brain to process the affirmation as a roadmap for action, rather than an abstract wish. Positive self-talk also plays a role in emotional regulation. Negative thoughts trigger chemical responses in the body that increase stress, such as cortisol and adrenaline, creating a cycle of tension and immobility. By replacing these thoughts with conscious affirmations, you alter your internal chemistry, promoting a sense of calm and clarity. Over time, this is reflected in more thoughtful decisions, a greater ability to cope with setbacks, and a feeling of control over one's own life. Another crucial point is consistency. Affirmations don't work like magic in a single moment, but rather as a daily practice. Each repetition strengthens the connection between intention and behavior, creating mental habits that remain even in moments of pressure. By persisting, you begin to notice that the very language that automatically arises in your mind becomes more positive, constructive, and solution-oriented, as if you were constantly encouraging yourself to move forward. It is also important to integrate these affirmations into practical situations. Thoughts of doubt may arise before a presentation, an important decision, or even when faced with small daily tasks. In these moments, internally repeating phrases that reinforce ability, courage, and determination not only boosts confidence, but also directs previously negative energy toward concrete action. Each challenge faced thus becomes an opportunity to consolidate positive self-talk, transforming experiences that previously generated anxiety into fuel for growth and success. By using affirmations and positive self-talk, you are essentially taking on the role of director of your own mental state. Every word you choose to speak to yourself influences emotions, behavior, and perception of reality. With discipline and attention, it is possible to transform the natural pattern of thoughts, which often tends towards fear and doubt, into a constant flow of encouragement, courage, and clarity. Consistent practice creates a virtuous cycle. Positive thoughts generate positive actions, which in turn reinforce confidence and promote new achievements. Over time, you realize that what was once just imagination or desire manifests in real life, because a mind trained for success begins to interpret each situation with optimism and proactivity. This process is more than superficial motivation. It's a profound reshaping of the mind, a silent transformation that alters how you perceive yourself and the world around you. Affirmations and positive self-talk, when used with intention and persistence, not only neutralize negative thoughts but also create a solid foundation of internal energy that fuels achievement, resilience, and personal satisfaction. With each repetition, you build not only confidence, but also a mental habit that transforms challenges into opportunities and doubts into fuel for action, establishing a pattern of success that sustains itself regardless of external circumstances. Focus on your strengths. Focusing on your strengths is an essential practice for transforming negative thoughts into energy for success. Often, we spend a large part of our lives analyzing flaws, comparing ourselves to others, and highlighting what we can't do, without realizing that this constant focus on deficiency distances us from our true potential. When we direct our attention and effort towards what we already know how to do well, what differentiates us and makes us unique, we create a solid foundation of self-confidence and motivation. This approach doesn't ignore challenges or limitations, but redefines how we react to them, transforming potentially negative situations into opportunities for growth and achievement. By looking at our own talents and abilities, even if they seem simple or commonplace, we begin to perceive a network of internal resources that has always been available to us, but which we often neglect because of limiting thought patterns. This recognition is not just intellectual, it's deeply emotional. Every time we remind ourselves of a capacity we possess, a strength that characterizes us, we feel a renewed energy that propels us to act, to face challenges, and to seek new opportunities. This energy arises from a mixture of self-worth, internal motivation, and clarity about our role in our own lives. Furthermore, focusing on strengths allows for a more strategic approach to life and work. When we know in which areas we are naturally competent, we can direct our actions to maximize results. This means that, instead of spending time trying to improve aspects in which we have little aptitude or inclination, we invest our effort in what can generate the greatest impact. This shift in focus is not selfishness or arrogance. It is a way of working with one's own nature, leveraging innate talents to create consistent and satisfying results. Psychological science shows that individuals who recognize and utilize their strengths experience higher levels of personal satisfaction and productivity, as their actions are aligned with their natural abilities. Each effort becomes more efficient, less strenuous, and more enjoyable, reinforcing a positive cycle of confidence and achievement. On a mental level, focusing on strengths acts as a powerful tool for redirecting negative thoughts. When we feel fear, doubt, or insecurity, it's easy to fall into the trap of self-criticism and paralysis. However, by remembering previously developed skills, acquired competencies, or personal qualities that define us, we can transform the energy of these negative emotions into an impulse to act. This process requires conscious practice. Instead of reacting automatically to negativity, we stop and ask ourselves, what are my capabilities that I can use at this moment? What internal resource can I activate to transform this situation? The answer to these questions not only provides concrete solutions, but also generates a sense of control over one's own life, reducing anxiety and feelings of powerlessness. Focusing on strengths also fosters a long-term perspective. Life is full of challenges and frustrations, but those who cultivate and apply their distinctive skills develop a resilience that keeps them moving forward, even in difficult times. This practice creates a domino effect. The more we recognize and utilize our skills, the more confident we become, and the more confident we become, the more capable we are of transforming adversity into learning and growth. This virtuous cycle transforms the very perception of failure. Instead of seeing it as an insurmountable obstacle, it becomes an indicator of where our strengths can be applied most effectively, adjusting strategies and reinforcing self-esteem. By focusing on strengths, a person also creates a positive and motivating internal narrative. Each achievement, however small, is perceived as the result of a specific skill, reinforcing self-belief and the ability to face future challenges. This narrative does not ignore difficulties, but puts them into context, showing that it is possible to move forward using existing internal resources, instead of relying exclusively on external factors. The constant practice of recognizing and valuing talents creates a mental state in which negative thoughts, instead of paralyzing, are transformed into signals to activate and apply personal skills. In this way, focusing on strengths is not just a self-knowledge technique, but a practical and powerful way to transform negative energy into productive action, self-confidence, and success. If you truly want to transform your mind and use every negative thought as fuel for your success, subscribe to the channel now and activate the bell so you don't miss any powerful tips. And I want to know from you, what thought will you transform into positive energy today? Comment below and share your experience. Let's create a community of people who don't let negativity control their lives.